The vast darkness of space stretched out like an endless canvas, punctuated by the soft blue-green glow of the Stellar Harmony Alliance's exploration vessel. Commander Zara Lynn sat in the observation deck, her six-fingered hands resting lightly on the crystalline control interface. Around her, the ship's advanced sensors hummed with a quiet efficiency that spoke of millennia of technological refinement. Today was supposed to be another routine patrol along the outer rim of known space. Exploration vessels like hers had mapped countless star systems, encountered dozens of emerging civilizations, and maintained the delicate balance of galactic diplomacy for generations. The Stellar Harmony Alliance prided itself on its comprehensive understanding of spacefaring potential. A subtle vibration broke through her contemplative silence. The ship's sensor array had detected something unusual, a technological signature that didn't match any known profile in their extensive databases. Zara leaned forward, her translucent skin shifting to a deeper shade of blue-gray, a physiological response to heightened curiosity. Scanning anomaly, she spoke softly to the ship's artificial intelligence. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a crude but somehow intriguing set of technological readings. The approaching vessel looked like nothing the Alliance had ever encountered. Its design seemed almost primitive, a hodgepodge of materials that appeared to defy conventional engineering principles. Most species, when first developing interstellar capabilities, created vessels that followed predictable patterns, smooth lines, standardized energy signatures, carefully calculated structural designs that spoke of careful mathematical precision. This ship was different. It looked like something constructed from whatever materials were available, modified, and reimagined in ways that broke every established rule of spacecraft design. Senior Navigator Krell, a veteran of hundreds of first-contact missions, approached the observation deck. His multi-jointed body moved with the fluid grace typical of his species. "Interesting," he murmured, his sensory tendrils extending to examine the holographic representation more closely. "The technological configuration is unconventional." Unconventional was an understatement. The vessel's hull seemed to be constructed from a mix of materials that shouldn't technically work together. Energy signatures fluctuated in patterns that defied the standard models of propulsion and shielding. It was as if someone had taken the fundamental rules of spacecraft design and deliberately chosen to ignore them. "Incoming communication protocol," the ship's AI announced, its melodic voice cutting through the tension. "Communication method: primitive radio wave transmission. Translation in progress." Zara's team exchanged surprised glances. Radio wave transmissions were considered archaic by most advanced civilizations. Most used quantum entanglement communication or subspace frequency modulation. Yet there was something refreshingly direct about this approach. The communication crackled to life. The voice was human, a species the Stellar Harmony Alliance had only recently discovered. They were considered a nascent civilization, barely taking their first steps into space. Preliminary reports had classified them as technologically immature, unlikely to pose any significant galactic impact for centuries. Unidentified vessel, this is the independent research and exploration craft Horizon. We detected your presence and thought we'd say hello. Our navigation systems are a bit temperamental. Mind if we approach for a quick systems check? The message was unlike any first-contact communication they had previously encountered. No formal diplomatic protocols, no lengthy introductions, just a straightforward and almost casual request. The ship's movement was equally unconventional. Not the precise, calculated approach of a trained navigation system, but something more organic. It moved with a combination of mathematical precision and what could only be described as intuitive improvisation. Zora found herself smiling. The universe, it seemed, was about to become far more interesting than any of their carefully constructed models had predicted. "Prepare standard first contact protocols," she instructed her crew. "But be prepared for anything." Little did they know, this encounter would mark the beginning of a profound transformation in galactic understanding. The Grand Central Chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed with millennia of accumulated technological sophistication. Holographic displays cast soft blue and green light across the polished crystalline surfaces, reflecting the collected wisdom of dozens of advanced civilizations. Here, the fate of entire star systems was often decided with a mere gesture or a subtle shift in diplomatic positioning. Admiral Krelon stood at the center of the chamber, his latest report about the newly discovered human civilization projected behind him. His presentation was met with a mixture of amusement and dismissive chuckles from the assembled representatives. Each delegate represented a civilization that had mastered interstellar travel centuries, if not millennia, ago. "Colleagues," Krelon began, his voice resonating with practiced condescension, "we have encountered a primitive species that has barely managed to place rudimentary probes beyond their home system. Their technological capabilities are so limited that they pose no strategic consideration whatsoever." The holographic display showed images of human spacecraft, vessels that looked cobbled together from disparate materials, with energy signatures that seemed more like controlled accidents than intentional engineering. Compared to the sleek, mathematically perfect designs of the Council members' civilizations, these human ships looked like children's toys crafted from scavenged parts. Chief Researcher Voxna, a senior scientist from the Quantum Evolutionary Collective, leaned forward with mild curiosity. Her species had long ago transcended physical form, existing primarily as advanced computational matrices. Their communication protocols are particularly unsophisticated, she observed, her holographic form shimmering slightly. They use linear, direct language with minimal contextual embedding. It's almost charming in its primitiveness. The chamber erupted in soft laughter. To these assembled beings, humanity was nothing more than a footnote, another emerging species that would take centuries to develop any meaningful space presence. Their technological trajectory seemed painfully linear, lacking the quantum leaps of innovation that characterized truly advanced civilizations. "Our preliminary analysis," continued Admiral Krelon, "suggests that human interstellar capabilities are approximately 3 to 4 centuries behind the galactic standard. Their understanding of fundamental physics appears to be rudimentary at best." What the Admiral didn't realize was how deeply flawed such assessments could be. Throughout galactic history, numerous civilizations had made the fatal mistake of underestimating emerging species based on superficial technological observations. In a side chamber, a small group of junior diplomatic analysts exchanged knowing glances. They had been studying the human communication logs more closely, noticing subtle patterns that the senior leadership seemed to overlook. There was something different about these humans, a quality that defied standard computational models. Dr. Lena Shar, a young xenoanthropologist, had been compiling an extensive report that differed significantly from the official narrative. Her research suggested that human innovation worked through entirely different principles than those understood by other spacefaring civilizations. "They don't follow linear technological progression," she had argued in her preliminary reports. "Their development seems to be driven by something more unpredictable, a combination of creative problem-solving and systemic adaptability that our current models cannot accurately predict." Her observations had been politely filed away, dismissed as the overzealous speculation of a junior researcher. The Galactic Council continued its meeting, confident in its assessment of human potential. Trade routes would be established, minimal diplomatic courtesies would be extended, but no serious consideration would be given to this emerging species. Little did they know that humanity was already watching, learning, and preparing to challenge every single assumption they had made. In the depths of human research facilities scattered across their home system, engineers and scientists were working on projects that would soon redefine the very understanding of technological innovation. They approached challenges not with the rigid methodologies of established civilizations, but with a unique blend of creativity, practical improvisation, and an almost rebellious disregard for established scientific limitations. The universe was about to receive a profound lesson in the dangers of underestimation. As the holographic displays in the council chamber faded and the delegates prepared to move on to more significant matters, the first seeds of a massive miscalculation had already been planted. The outer rim of human-colonized space was nothing like the carefully manicured territories of established galactic civilizations. Here, survival depended on ingenuity, adaptability, and a relentless drive to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. The colony on New Horizons stood as a testament to human resilience, a collection of interconnected habitats carved into a harsh, unforgiving planetary landscape. Warning alarms shattered the routine of the settlement. Deep space sensors detected an incoming threat that would have sent most emerging civilizations into immediate panic. A rogue collective of cybernetic raiders, known throughout the galaxy for their ruthless precision, had targeted the human colony. These raiders were infamous for their ability to disable and strip entire settlements in a matter of hours, leaving nothing but silent, empty husks behind. Colony Defense Coordinator Marcus Chen studied the incoming threat with a calm that would have seemed impossible to any other species. Where most would see certain destruction, he saw an opportunity for improvisation. "Defensive protocols are not standard," he muttered to his team. "We're going to have to get creative." The cybernetic raiders approached with their typical methodical precision. Their fleet consisted of sleek, standardized vessels that represented the pinnacle of technological optimization. Each ship was a marvel of computational efficiency, designed to analyze and neutralize threats with mathematical precision. They had conquered dozens of colonies across multiple star systems, their success rate approaching near perfection. But they had never encountered humans before. The colony's defensive system was nothing like the traditional energy shields and weapon platforms used by other civilizations. Instead, Marcus and his team had developed a multi-layered defense that borrowed from seemingly unrelated fields of science. Geological monitoring systems became early warning networks. Agricultural infrastructure transformed into complex camouflage mechanisms. Even the colonists' waste management systems were integrated into a comprehensive defensive strategy. As the first wave of raider ships entered the system, they encountered something completely unexpected. The colony didn't just have defenses, it was a defense. Electromagnetic pulses emerged from unexpected locations. What appeared to be simple communication arrays became powerful jamming systems. Mining equipment repurposed as makeshift artillery began launching projectiles that defied standard weapon classification. The raiders' computational systems struggled to categorize and respond to threats that didn't follow any known combat protocols. Marcus watched the battle unfold with a mixture of scientific curiosity and strategic calculation. "Redirect cooling system output," he instructed a team member. "Create thermal anomalies in Sector 7. The colony's infrastructure became a living, breathing defensive organism. Habitation modules shifted and reconfigured. Communication networks transformed into complex misdirection systems. Even the planet's natural geological features were integrated into the defensive strategy. The cybernetic raiders found themselves fighting not just against a military force, but against an entire ecosystem that seemed to actively resist their invasion. Their standardized attack protocols began to fail. For the first time in their documented history, they encountered a defensive strategy that couldn't be mathematically predicted or systematically neutralized. What should have been a simple conquest turned into a prolonged, increasingly desperate engagement. Each time the raiders thought they had identified a weakness, the human colony would respond with a solution that came from an entirely unexpected direction. Communication intercepts revealed the raiders' increasing frustration. Their strategic AI began to display signs of computational stress, a phenomenon previously unobserved in their combat systems. The humans weren't just defending. They were learning, adapting, and turning the entire invasion into a complex problem-solving exercise. After what seemed like an impossible duration, the raider fleet began to retreat. Not because they had been destroyed, but because they had been fundamentally outsmarted. Marcus Chen allowed himself a slight smile. This was more than a victory. It was a statement about human potential. In the vast communication networks that connected various galactic civilizations, whispers began to spread. Something had changed. The humans were not what anyone had expected. The universe had just received a powerful reminder that potential cannot be measured by current capabilities, but by the capacity to imagine and create beyond existing limitations. The Galactic Research Consortium's primary analysis facility was a marvel of scientific achievement. Suspended in the gravitational null point between three carefully selected stars, the station represented the pinnacle of collaborative scientific investigation. Thousands of researchers from hundreds of civilizations worked in perfect synchronization, their combined knowledge spanning millennia of technological development. But nothing could have prepared them for the captured human vessel. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's team worked behind layers of advanced containment fields, their protective suits humming with complex sensor arrays. The ship, recovered from the recent colonial defense engagement, defied every known principle of spacecraft engineering. Where other vessels were precise, symmetrical, and mathematically perfect, this human craft looked like a brilliant accident of engineering. "Look at these power conduits," Dr. Quan Park muttered, rotating a holographic representation of the ship's internal systems. "They're not just unconventional. They're fundamentally impossible according to our current understanding of energy transfer." The ship's hull was a composite material that seemed to challenge the very definition of material science. Sensors detected molecular structures that shifted and reconfigured themselves, adapting to environmental stresses in ways that should have been theoretically impossible. What appeared to be simple metal plating contained complex nanostructural networks that could self-repair, redistribute energy, and modify their own molecular composition. Chief researcher Voxna, representing the Quantum Evolutionary Collective, found herself utterly fascinated. Her computational matrix analyzed the data streams, finding patterns that defied standard scientific models. "The technological approach is not linear," she observed to her colleagues. "It's more like adaptive problem-solving made material." Each system of the ship told a similar story of unexpected innovation. The propulsion mechanism looked like it had been cobbled together from components that were never meant to work together. Yet not only did they worked with an efficiency that outperformed standardized propulsion systems used by more advanced civilizations. The ship's computer systems were equally perplexing. Instead of the crystalline quantum processors used by most spacefaring civilizations, this vessel used a hybrid system that combined traditional computing with biological-inspired neural networks. It was as if the humans had looked at established technological principles and deliberately chosen to ignore them. "They're not developing technology," Dr. Rodriguez realized during one late-night analysis session. "They're solving problems. The technology is just a byproduct of their problem-solving approach." Communication systems were particularly intriguing. Where most civilizations used complex quantum entanglement networks, this ship used a multiple redundancy system that was simultaneously primitive and brilliant. If one communication method failed, it would instantly shift to another, creating a communication network that was nearly impossible to interrupt. The defensive systems were perhaps the most shocking discovery. Traditional shields worked by creating energy barriers that blocked incoming attacks. The human ship's defense mechanism was entirely different. It could actually predict potential attack vectors and subtly modify its own molecular structure to minimize damage. It wasn't blocking attacks so much as making itself difficult to effectively hit. "It's like the entire ship is one massive adaptive organism," Dr. Park observed, his hands moving through holographic displays. As days turned into weeks, the research team's initial dismissive attitude transformed into something closer to wonder. These humans weren't just developing technology. They were reimagining the very concept of technological development. Preliminary reports began to circulate through scientific networks. Phrases like unprecedented approach and revolutionary design principles started appearing in official documentation. The Galactic Research Consortium found itself confronting a profound question. What if technological advancement wasn't about achieving perfection, but about continuous creative problem-solving? The human vessel sat in its containment field, looking almost deceptively simple. But to those who could truly see, it was a window into an entirely different approach to understanding technology. innovation, and the very nature of scientific progress. The universe, it seemed, was about to be reminded that true innovation rarely follows expected paths. The diplomatic conference room was designed to be neutral ground, a space engineered to minimize psychological tension between different species. Smooth walls and calming gradient colors, adaptive environmental controls, and carefully calibrated acoustic dampening were meant to create an atmosphere of rational discourse. Commander Sarah Chen understood the psychological landscape of interstellar diplomacy better than most. Where other species saw negotiations as precise mathematical exchanges, humans approached communication as a complex, multi-layered art form. Her delegation's approach was unlike anything the Galactic Diplomatic Corps had ever encountered. Their presentation materials were not standard data streams or clinical information packets. Instead, they used storytelling, visual metaphors, and adaptive communication techniques that seemed to dance around traditional diplomatic protocols. Each member of the human delegation brought a unique psychological approach to the negotiations. Where alien diplomats expected rigid, predictable responses, the humans demonstrated an almost playful ability to reframe conversations, introduce unexpected perspectives, and transform potential conflicts into collaborative opportunities. Senior diplomat Michael Rodriguez understood something fundamental about communication that most alien species missed. Diplomacy wasn't about presenting information, it was about creating connection. His team used techniques that blended cultural anthropology, psychological insight, and creative communication strategies. During one critical negotiation about resource-sharing agreements, the human delegation did something unprecedented. Instead of presenting standard trade proposals, they created an immersive experience that allowed other species to understand their perspective through shared narrative and emotional engagement. The alien representatives found themselves experiencing human perspectives in ways that transcended traditional communication methods. Complex economic negotiations became collaborative storytelling sessions. Potential conflict zones transformed into shared problem-solving opportunities. Psychological analysts from various civilizations began studying human communication methods with increasing fascination. The humans seemed to operate outside of standard communication models. They didn't just exchange information. They created dynamic, adaptive communication ecosystems. Their technological systems reflected this approach. Communication arrays weren't just about transmitting data. They were designed to build understanding. Navigation systems weren't simply about moving from point A to point B. They were about creating meaningful journeys. Even their spacecraft design embodied this psychological approach. Where other civilizations created uniform, mathematically precise vessels, human ships seemed to have individual personalities. Each craft told a story, carried a unique set of experiences, adapted to its crew's specific needs. Xenopsychological research teams discovered something profound about human communication. Most spacefaring civilizations used communication as a tool for information transfer. Humans used communication as a method of creating collective understanding, building complex social networks, and solving problems through collaborative imagination. During one diplomatic session, a senior alien representative attempted to use standard negotiation algorithms, complex computational approaches designed to find optimal solutions through mathematical precision. The human team responded with an approach that was part storytelling, part collaborative problem-solving, and part creative improvisation. The result was not just a negotiation, but the emergence of entirely new approaches to interstellar cooperation. Dr. Elena Martinez, the team's lead communication specialist, explained their approach in a subsequent academic presentation. "We don't see communication as a transaction," she said. "We see it as a living, breathing ecosystem of shared understanding." Galactic communication experts found themselves confronting a fundamental challenge to their existing models. The humans weren't just communicating. They were continuously reimagining the very concept of communication. Their psychological approach extended beyond diplomatic contexts. In scientific collaboration, medical research, technological development, Humans brought a unique perspective that combined emotional intelligence, creative problem-solving, and an almost rebellious willingness to challenge existing paradigms. As reports circulated through various galactic networks, a profound realization began to take shape. The humans were not just another spacefaring species. They were architects of a fundamentally different approach to understanding connection, communication, and collective problem-solving. The universe was about to learn that true innovation was less about technology and more about the capacity to imagine beyond existing limitations. The central chamber of the Galactic Council had witnessed countless historic moments, but nothing quite prepared it for the comprehensive report about human potential. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before the assembled representatives. Her presentation was unlike any diplomatic briefing in galactic history. Holographic displays came to life, showing not just technical data, but a complex narrative of human development. Each image told a story of innovation that defied conventional understanding. The displays showed how humans transformed limitations into opportunities, turning what other species would consider obstacles into sources of unprecedented strength. We're not looking at a linear technological progression, Dr. Rodriguez began, her voice calm and deliberate. We're observing a fundamentally different approach to problem-solving and innovation. The report revealed layers of human capability that shocked the assembled representatives. Their technological development wasn't about achieving a predetermined standard of advancement. Instead, it was a continuous process of creative reimagination. Where other civilizations saw fixed technological paths, humans saw infinite possibilities. Computational models demonstrated how human innovation worked. Unlike the precise, predictable technological development of other species, human progress looked more like a complex, adaptive network. Limitations became launching points for creativity. Challenges were not obstacles but opportunities for radical reimagination. Scientific archives were re-examined. Moments that had previously been dismissed as technological anomalies now revealed themselves as breakthrough moments of human potential. Their approach to scientific discovery was less about following established methodologies and more about challenging fundamental assumptions. The medical research section of the report was particularly revealing. Human medical technology didn't just treat diseases, it reimagined the entire concept of health and biological adaptation. Their approach combined technological innovation with a deep understanding of biological systems in ways that challenged everything known about medical science. Environmental adaptation studies showed something even more profound. While most spacefaring civilizations sought to control and modify environments to suit their needs, humans demonstrated an extraordinary ability to adapt themselves. They didn't just survive in challenging conditions, they transformed those conditions through creative problem-solving. Dr. Rodriguez's presentation went beyond technological capabilities. It explored the psychological and social mechanisms that drove human innovation. Their collaborative approaches, their ability to build complex social networks, their willingness to challenge existing paradigms, these were not just cultural traits. They were fundamental survival mechanisms. Imagine innovation as an ecosystem, she explained, not a linear progression. Humans don't just develop technology. They create living, adaptive systems of problem-solving. The most startling revelations came from their approach to interstellar challenges. Where other civilizations saw resource limitations, humans saw opportunities for creative solutions. Their spacecraft designs, communication systems, and technological approaches were less about achieving perfection and more about continuous adaptation. Diplomatic records were re-examined. Interactions that had previously seemed chaotic or unpredictable now revealed themselves as sophisticated communication strategies. Humans didn't just exchange information, they created dynamic networks of shared understanding. The comprehensive report challenged fundamental assumptions about technological development, social organization, and interstellar potential. It wasn't just a technical document. It was a window into an entirely different approach to existing in the universe. Representatives from various civilizations found themselves confronting uncomfortable questions. How could a species that had been considered technologically primitive demonstrate such profound innovative potential? What did this mean for established galactic hierarchies? As the presentation concluded, a profound silence filled the chamber. The holographic displays continued to shimmer, showing images of human achievements, not as a linear timeline, but as a complex, interconnected network of creative problem-solving. Dr. Rodriguez's final statement resonated through the chamber. Potential is not measured by current capabilities, but by the capacity to imagine beyond existing limitations. The universe was about to undergo a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be an advanced civilization. Whispers began to spread. Something momentous was happening. The humans were not just another species to be categorized and understood. They were architects of an entirely new approach to existence. The Galactic Council would never be the same. The diplomatic halls of the Galactic Council trembled with an energy that defied standard political protocols. Delegations from various star systems found themselves divided in ways they had never experienced before. The human question had become more than a topic of discussion. It was a fundamental challenge to galactic civilization's understanding of itself. Ambassador Wei Chen stood at the center of this brewing storm, his presence both calm and provocative. Where traditional diplomats relied on carefully crafted statements and predetermined negotiation strategies, Chen approached the diplomatic challenge as an opportunity for genuine communication. "We're not asking to be accepted," he said during a particularly heated session. "We're inviting collaboration." Some delegations called for immediate containment. The Quantum Evolutionary Collective proposed a comprehensive study of human potential, which many interpreted as a thinly veiled attempt to understand how to control or limit human expansion. The Stellar Harmony Alliance pushed for a more measured approach, recognizing the potential benefits of human innovation. Senior diplomat Krell, who had been part of the initial human encounter, had become an unexpected advocate. His report detailed the humans' unique approach to problem-solving, highlighting their ability to transform challenges into opportunities. "They are not a threat to be managed," he argued, "but a potential catalyst for galactic evolution." Behind closed diplomatic channels, more complex negotiations were taking place. Human representatives didn't just present traditional diplomatic proposals. They created collaborative frameworks that challenged the very concept of interstellar relations, where previous diplomatic models were based on resource exchange and territorial agreements. Humans proposed dynamic, adaptive cooperation models. The technological implications were profound. Human research teams began sharing insights that promised to revolutionize multiple scientific fields. Their approach to medical technology could potentially solve long-standing health challenges for several civilizations. Their environmental adaptation techniques offered new solutions for planetary colonization. But not everyone saw opportunity. The cybernetic aggregation, a civilization that prided itself on computational precision, viewed human unpredictability as a fundamental threat. Their representative argued for strict limitations on human technological development, viewing their adaptive capabilities as a potential destabilizing force. Unpredictability is not a feature of advanced civilization, the cybernetic representative declared. It is a fundamental weakness. Commander Sarah Rodriguez, leading the human diplomatic team, responded with a presentation that was part scientific analysis, part philosophical exploration. She demonstrated how human unpredictability was actually a sophisticated survival mechanism. Their ability to adapt, to reimagine solutions, was not a weakness but a profound strength. The diplomatic tension reached a critical point during a marathon negotiation session. Traditional diplomatic algorithms, complex computational models designed to find optimal solutions, failed completely when applied to human negotiation strategies. The humans didn't just negotiate. They transformed the entire concept of negotiation. Environmental adaptation specialists were particularly intrigued. Human teams presented collaborative research that suggested entirely new approaches to planetary terraforming. Instead of forcing environments to match predetermined specifications, they proposed adaptive models that allowed for mutual transformation. Dr. Elena Martinez, the lead communication specialist, explained their approach in a way that challenged fundamental diplomatic assumptions. Cooperation is not about finding a middle ground, she said. It's about creating entirely new ground together. Some delegations saw potential. Others saw threat. The Galactic Council found itself divided in ways it had never experienced. Humans were not just another species to be categorized and understood. They were proposing a fundamental reimagining of interstellar cooperation. As tensions escalated, an unexpected development emerged. Human diplomatic teams began proposing collaborative projects that addressed challenges facing multiple civilizations. Water purification technologies for resource-poor planets, medical research that could address genetic challenges, communication technologies that could bridge cultural divides. They were not just asking for a place at the table. They were reimagining the table itself. The universe watched and waited. Something profound was happening. The traditional galactic order was about to be challenged in ways no one could have predicted. Diplomatic tensions were not a problem to be solved. They were an opportunity to be explored. The central chamber of the Galactic Council had witnessed countless historic moments, but nothing compared to the day humanity was invited to become a full member of the interstellar community. The traditional crystalline architecture seemed to shimmer with anticipation, reflecting the complex emotions of assembled delegates from hundreds of different civilizations. Dr. Marcus Chen led the human delegation, his presence a study in quiet confidence. Unlike previous diplomatic encounters, this was not a moment of conquest or submission. It was an invitation to collaborative transformation. The invitation itself was unprecedented. Humans were not being asked to conform to existing galactic standards. Instead, they were being invited to contribute to a fundamental reimagining of interstellar cooperation. Chief Researcher Voxna, representing the Quantum Evolutionary Collective, presented the formal invitation. Her computational matrix had been profoundly changed by years of studying human innovation. "We are not extending membership," she stated, her holographic form shifting with subtle complexity. "We are proposing a new model of collective advancement." The assembled delegates watched as holographic displays revealed the depth of human potential. Medical research that could revolutionize genetic treatments, environmental adaptation technologies that could transform inhospitable planets, communication systems that bridged not just linguistic barriers, but fundamental conceptual differences between species. What made the human approach unique was not any single technological breakthrough. It was their fundamental approach to problem solving. Where other civilizations saw challenges as obstacles to be overcome, humans saw them as opportunities for creative reimagination. The diplomatic proceedings were unlike any in galactic history. Instead of formal speeches and rigid protocols, the humans proposed collaborative frameworks. Each presentation was a living demonstration of their innovative approach. They didn't just present solutions, they created dynamic, adaptive models of cooperation. Environmental specialists were particularly impressed. Human terraforming techniques didn't just modify planets to suit specific needs. They proposed adaptive models that allowed for mutual transformation, an approach that respected both technological capabilities and ecological complexity. Medical researchers found themselves confronting entirely new paradigms of understanding. Human approaches to genetic research, disease prevention, and biological adaptation challenged fundamental assumptions about health and evolution. Communication technologies demonstrated an approach that went beyond simple information transfer. The humans had developed systems that could bridge not just linguistic differences, but fundamental conceptual and cultural gaps between species. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, leading the scientific delegation, explained their approach with a clarity that resonated through the chamber. "We're not seeking to replace existing knowledge," she said. "We're inviting collective reimagination." The cybernetic aggregation, which had previously been most resistant to human inclusion, found itself fascinated. The humans' adaptive capabilities challenged their understanding of technological development. Where the aggregation saw technology as a precise, predictable system, humans demonstrated technology as a living, evolving ecosystem. As the proceedings continued, something profound became clear. This was not about humans joining an existing galactic order. This was about creating an entirely new model of interstellar cooperation. The final resolution was not a traditional membership document. It was a collaborative framework that invited continuous reimagination. Humans would not just be participants in the Galactic Council, they would be catalysts for ongoing innovation. Commander Elena Chen's closing statement captured the moment's significance. "We're not here to be accepted," she said. "We're here to collaborate, to learn, to grow together." The chamber fell silent. Delegates from hundreds of civilizations found themselves confronting a fundamental truth. The universe was far more complex, far more beautiful than any single perspective could comprehend. As the human delegation prepared to leave, something had fundamentally changed. The Galactic Council was no longer just a diplomatic body. It had become a living, adaptive system of collective potential. The universe watched and waited. A new chapter was beginning, not of conquest, not of submission, but of collective imagination.